what's going on, everybody? Veedotme here. I'm here to introduce you to the brand new early access for Kādomon Hyper Auto Battlers. Kādomon is a roguelike auto battler with over 230 Kādomon to collect and build a team with. Shoutouts to the folks over at Fireshine Games for sponsoring this video. If you want to pick up the game, check out the description of this YouTube vid. We have the link to the Steam store page. For the first week, buyers get 10% off, and there are unique shiny variants to the 3 starters. Those are like a 1 in 1,000 encounter rate, so you can get those as a week 1 bonus. They didn't reach out to me because I'm known for like monster collector style games. We're looking at this from a roguelike perspective because this is actually a monster collector, auto battler, roguelike game. You may have seen auto battlers in the past that revolve around collecting cute creatures, finding a synergy, and then battling against stuff, but in this game, you have a roguelike track alongside classic monster typing, unique attacks and traits for each one of them, and then special items that you'll equip all along the journey to reach the final boss of the game through 3 different biomes. This game is also packed with secrets such as legendary Kādomon to find, special 4th tier evolutions, which they call hyper evolutions in here, and a bunch of different team compositions that I haven't even discovered yet. The goal is to build a team that can fight against any other team that you come across. Because it's a creature collector, each Kādomon has its own typing to it. You have your classic fire, water, electric, physical, dark, sky, you have all of that stuff. Each typing has a weakness to it, so you'll want to be careful about which battles you take on this track through each biome of the game. Each fight along the track shows the typing of not only what you're going to fight, but also what you have a chance of getting from that encounter. So for example, the first Kādomon I'm picking is Kryze. Kryze is a starter water ice Kādomon. It's sort of a tank. You can kind of see the shield icon in the top left of the card. It has a lot more HP than the others, but it has nowhere near the attack power. After I pick that unit, we get to start off on which track of the biome I want to go through. This is called Botor Region. It has all of the Kādomon listed on the left-hand side that you can possibly get. Some I haven't even found yet. But in the first fights, we have a choice between a fire air, earth air, dark poison, or physical air. Luckily, we didn't hit lightning, and we didn't hit grass, so I think we can actually pick any of these. If I happen to see water ice, then I can have a chance to actually get something that already works with what I have. So this is almost like a free choice. Unfortunately, some monsters do have dual typing, so I ended up fighting against a dark and electric type, which actually does super effective attacks against me. It's okay though, because I have a tank, I'm able to just get through it with no problem. The game also gives us a little bit of a training dummy. It doesn't have any typings to it, all it is a second unit so you aren't set by yourself. But when you win, you do get the chance to take one of the Kādomon that you fought against. If it had extra items along with it, you would have that too. And then you sort of try to build a team around the things that you have found along the way, and also what you get the chance to buy in shops in between fights. Notice that this Kit Zap is also a tank. It lets monsters target itself, and it also shields itself. I already had the tank already, but this one gives its own shielding, so I'm gonna make this one our new tank. As I said, there are also items that go along with each Kādomon. They can only have one at a time, so you try to get something that supplements the actual playstyle you have. As I said, I got tanks, so it makes sense for me to grab Thorncorn. This grants my unit thorns, which does a reflected damage whenever anything tries to hit me. There are also field effects, which are almost like a relic. These can sort of be game breaking. Sometimes they just add a basic effect, such as all allies get 3 shielding at the start of a fight. But then some of them are really meta defining, such as turn all lightning types into toxic. So at the start, it sounds pretty basic, right? You pick Kādomon, you try to get the typings to be similar so that you activate passives, which are shown at the top. You try to grab items that make sense for the Kādomon you're using, and then you have to build a team that can actually fight against other stuff without dying. If you lose too many encounters, you start losing the morale that's in the top left corner. Once this hits 0, you automatically lose the run and you can start over from the beginning. There aren't many opportunities to replenish this, so you have to be really careful about which fights you take. And of course, if you die to the boss itself, it's an automatic loss of the run, just like in true roguelike fashion. Now, the big thing that makes roguelike auto battlers exciting is to have units that actually do some pretty unique stuff and try to figure out how to mix and match those with other units to make something strong. And there's actually a metric ton of different passives and actives on each individual Kādomon. Out of the amount of hours I have in the game thus far, I haven't even seen all of the Kādomon, let alone use each of these effects. For example, this is a Nature Fire Poison Snake, which has a funny drawback that reduces its attack while it's poisoned, but it can turn allies' poison into regen. This is a dark and physical bear, or at least a shadow living inside of a bear's body. At the start of every battle, it grants all of your Kādomon Fortify, but then it has a special effect where it takes away one of your party members and then summons a copy of it at level 1 with like 8 HP. So it almost makes clones of one of your existing units. This is a water and air reptile, where every time you summon an ally, it deals damage to an enemy, and then it also attacks the backline enemies to try to get past the tank line. If you like earth types, this one is a Giga Tank that actually gives your units more maximum HP after an encounter, and then during the encounter, it grants 7 shielding to the lowest HP ally you have. Sort of a hybrid tank and support. And finally, I'll give you another weird one. This is a pure nature clown Kādomon. This one actually copies the Kādomon's passives that are 2 spaces ahead of it, and then its special attack activates all on attack and before attack effects. Those could come from items and also passives of each Kādomon you have on your squad. So as you see, this stuff can get pretty exotic, and I've already made some decently fun runs out of it. Alright, so in this run, we're going to start off with Synergise, which is not one that I use very often. Synergise is a tank, water and ice. Water gives you extra damage once you get enough synergies for it. Ice slows enemies every time one of your units faints. We're going to go into our first fight. We didn't have anything for water or ice here, so I'm just going to go for a generic dark option. And somehow I hit Dark Lightning, which is basically a weakness for Synergise. Luckily, this is a tank, so I really shouldn't have to worry about too much here. Every time we win a fight, we get a little bit of money for it. We get the chance to recruit the Kādomon, which we're going to grab Kit Zap here. Kit Zap is another tank, but we don't have to worry about swapping out Synergise just yet. We're just going to have this as an extra unit anyway. The items we're going to select, we have the choice between damage, thorns, or some movement. We'll grab the thorns because we have double tanks. And then finally we get a field effect. I could go for something a little more exotic like the sleep or the lightning equals toxin, but I'm just gonna grab the extra shielding for now. As I said, the dog is gonna be our new tank, so I'm gonna move it to the front. And then Synergise actually will shield any front units, including itself, so it will be shielding the new dog. Alright, my next choices are between air, grass, and poison ice. It would probably be smart to start going for ice units, so I'm gonna go for the poison ice here. I see another tank unit, and then I believe this is a support. Most of the time, I don't die in the early skirmishes. It really depends on if I choose a bad typing. So with an easy victory here, we have a choice between Plurpal, another tank, or Paranute, another support. Paranute can apply slow to a lot of enemies, and then whenever slow is applied to itself, it grants units behind it some speed up. So we're gonna go ahead and grab the Paranute here. This slime is on hit, slow a random enemy. That sounds like it would be perfect for this setup, but I will have to tell you that it doesn't actually apply fast to me. I think Paranute has to get slowed in order for it to do its passive. We end up in a campfire. These campfires are really cool because they let you level up a unit. It isn't enough for me to fully evolve, but it will give me about halfway to a level. We get into another fight with lots of ice units, a couple that I might want to grab here, including another Paranute, which might give me a full level if I grab it. you can actually see Pup Ice has fast on it, and that's because every time Paranute gets slowed on the enemy team, it's doing fast to its allies. That's the only way you can get that fast applied. So because I was basically buffing the enemy units, I actually lost this fight. We still get all the rewards though. We only lost some morale, which was 20 points worth. 5 losses is basically a lost run, and it doesn't help you actually get to the boss any easier. I ended up grabbing Pup Ice. Whenever an ally gets a shield, it actually grants energy to all of my units. We already know that Kreese gives shields, and so does the dog, so we have 2 sources of energy in this setup. Our next choice is between grass and bug. I don't remember which one of these is actually harmful for ice units. I'm gonna choose bug air and we'll see if I'm weak to it. There is a graph in the game to keep track, but you can also tell in the game if the attack flying at you is larger than normal, that means it's doing extra damage. We're also fighting against another Paranute, so you can see it's just spamming fast on all of its allies. At this point, I should probably avoid doing ice fights only because I'm buffing the enemy unit, but I do need ice units. That's part of what I'm building. With this victory, I'm gonna pick up Rymite. This one's kind of interesting. If any unit has cold on it, it actually takes bonus damage. It itself increases the damage of all of your units by 20% for each cold that's on the field. That includes cold that's on yourself too. But we do have to be careful that we don't weaken our own units by applying slow to ourselves. There are event rooms such as this magic orb. We have the choice between a field effect, a random typing, or a random item. This gave us a fireball that does damage every time you do an attack. We'll have another campfire. We have air typing available where we get fast at the start of every battle. We would take that assuming we're going to keep Paranute because that's part of a synergy that we already have. So we'll go ahead and apply air to Kitsap. I think there may be quadruple weakness in this game too, so you kind of have to be careful about which unit you apply typing to so that you don't end up being extra weak versus certain kinds of attacks. I'll equip my fireball and then head into the next fight. Funny enough, even though Kitsap is part lightning, now that it has an air typing to it, it's actually weak to electric attacks. In this game, typing doesn't necessarily give you defenses, it's all about being super effective. We can see that Pup Ice is doing some pretty good damage thus far. I still don't really care for the Paranute just yet, and we need more sources of cold for Rymite. However, Paranute is so close to a level, I'm gonna go ahead and grab an extra Paranute, which basically levels up the one you already have. Now we have Paraswoop that applies 2 cold to random enemies. In the shop, we have Frostmaul. This thing gives itself cold equal to the cold on all the enemies. When it does its super, it transforms the cold that's on it into attack power. It costs 12 though, so that's quite a bit. And we really only get gold every time we do a fight, so we're gonna have a long way to go before we can grab that unit. Why it's worth 12, I have no idea, but that's gotta be a good sign, right? Alright, so now we're kinda in trouble. We have to go up against an elite. Elites are typically one evolved unit and then a bunch of lower units. You can see I'm already weak to bug, so that's gonna be an issue. Our back line got blown up, so that's pretty bad. And we basically had no chance there. I dropped down to 40 morale, which is a lot more than I expected. So we're probably 2 losses away from losing this run. Let's go ahead into the next fight. Again, they have more Paraswoops, so the chance of me actually being able to apply cold without any detriment is getting harder and harder. All of my units are getting wrecked right now because they have such an advantage over me. We're down to just 20 morale left. We're gonna go ahead and level up our Pup Ice. Worst case scenario, the more I can level up these units, the better off I'll be. This is basically do or die here. I'm a little worried about Kit Sap because it seems to be weak to quite a lot of stuff, and that's supposed to be our tank. We don't need a tank that's weak to a lot of things. We have choice of items here. There's an Ice Mallet, which is pretty cool. Anytime an ally gains a shield, you do 2 damage to a random enemy. That kind of works out with our builds. We'll grab it. So I don't really care for any of the Kādomon here because they aren't giving us any types that we need. However, this Zip Strat has a balloon item, and the balloon applies cold anytime you get hurt. So that could actually be a really good tank item for us. We have enough money, we'll go ahead and buy Frost Maul. I'm gonna take out the Paraswoop, which is, I really feel like not doing anything for my team. I can sell off the Zip Strat and get the balloon from it. That's a lot better of a tank item for us. The hammer is going to go on my Frost Maul. I don't think it really matters who it goes on, so long as that monster stays alive, as long as the shield units are staying alive. So now I'm gonna sell off the rest of my Kādomon. This gives you candy that goes towards leveling up. So we can actually make Frost Maul level up into Freezard, which now it has a special move where it turns all the cold that's on it into attack, and then it triggers a basic attack 2 times. So now I don't really want the hammer on it anymore because we can add the fireball, which does additional damage every time you do an attack. My special is counted as 2 attacks, so the fireball gets to activate 2 times. So now we go into the boss fight. This is do or die. If I lose here, then we automatically lose the whole run. This is versus Queenstruction. It's a beehive that summons different kinds of units. I don't think it's just one single unit. We've already gotten it down to half HP. I don't know how much damage Freezard has done just yet, but we'll see towards the end of the fight. It already has 18 attack power at this point, which I feel like is actually pretty big. It doesn't look like we have type advantage either. So that's dead. Freezard did a total of 500 damage. Some of that was probably overkill, but Freezard has the ability to swing multiple times, and we're actually buffing each one of its swings. There's only a little bit of worry about the fact that it's adding cold to itself. It makes itself vulnerable. We get a new field effect. I'm gonna grab the Volcano because we do have some on getting hurt stuff already. I don't think I care for any of these. So let me grab some bonus XP. And now we're in the second biome. Take a look at my morale. We're still sitting at 20. I never got any of that back, so I still have to be kind of careful about the fights we take. I see lots of water. I see bug that I probably have to avoid. We're gonna pick this one, which happens to have 1 fire unit, which could be a problem with all of this ice. But let's hope that the multiple attacks I do with the fireball will just hit that back line. Freezard's still doing amazing damage. Hit Zap right now is just a tank, but it's doing absolutely nothing, which is kind of funny. We know for a fact we have specific units that are here to stay. I think between Core Glue, Rhymite, and Sneezard, we are pretty good shape as far as Kādomon goes. Really, Kit Zap, I think, is the weakest link here. Next encounter, I feel strong, so I'm gonna go for the Elite. Really, so long as Freezard stays alive, then we'll be okay. And the Elite's gone. Almost one-shotted. That Elite specifically doesn't have any typing to it. It's almost like the training dummy you start off with. Get ourselves a field effect. Wild Grass gives us morale back, which is actually very important. We're gonna go ahead and grab that. You get the chance of an item. The health potions actually give you max health. It's not really an item that you equip. It's more so a usable potion that works immediately. I'll put it on our tank for now. We'll level up the Kit Zap into the next level. This is now Drummer. It still has the same shielding and the same taunt ability. It has this revive tech, which I don't know if I really care for that. I kind of feel like I want to go for this Armachillo instead. This does apply cold. All cold on the map is turned into shielding. It's probably better than what I just took. second elite, we get another rock type enemy. This one I think is going to self-destruct if we take too long to kill it. You can see it's getting a lot of strength. I just need to get to the point where Freezard can solo it. And there it goes, 167 damage, basically instantly. New field effect, deal 1 damage to all units, attackers get max HP. On winning a round, get $2 extra. And as I said earlier, I could really use the money to replace the kit zap that I leveled up. So this is a little bit of risk reward, but it should be fine. We'll get ourselves another health potion. We got the $4 we were promised. So at this point, I believe we are safe enough to go through any fights that we want so long as Freezard can stay alive. We still have a little bit of an issue of our tank, so we will want to replace this whenever we can. I don't know if we'll be picking up any extra units that we run into. Perhaps Ice Crawl could get replaced at some point. We should take a look at any items that the Kādomon have, because those might be better than what I'm already using. But of course, if there's anything that I can't really use, just go ahead and take the XP. So now we have $8. Let's go ahead and grab Chilladin. This is going to be our new tank, so now we don't need the Kit Zap evolution anymore. Let's do a little bit of a field test to see how much shielding we can actually get, just in case I need to go back to where I was. And funny enough, there's another Kit Zap evolution here. This is Drummer, so in the case that we need to stick to Drummer, we can actually take this one. So that's a 20 shield that our tank got. It was almost close to death, but I mean, I guess it died anyway, but 20 shield is not half bad. I think Drummer would have died if it was still in the match. I feel confident enough to kill the elites that are on this map. If it's just the rock thing, we know for a fact we can kill that pretty easily. Anytime we kill an elite, we get a new field effect, and I do feel like these are pretty strong. For example, get 2 healing every time you use a special. Into our next fight, which is versus grass and fire units. These are like kind of weak units in general, so I'm not afraid of these, but we're now at the point where we have to fight like 6 different units, which could be an issue. Solid water. Whenever an ally faints, you deal 2 cold to the front enemy. But I really don't think I should be fainting all that much, so I'm just gonna take the XP. Onward to grass and fire. It's almost the same setup. Scorpion is actually a very dangerous monster. Let's go onward to the campfire. Again, campfires are where you can kind of break the game a little bit. We have added physical, and what physical does is that if you get hurt, an enemy gets frail. So we're going to toss physical on core glue. I don't believe that makes it really bad typing. I think that still works out pretty well for us. Now, whenever an ally is hurt, it applies frail to the front enemy. Our frail item is the ice club. Whenever frail is applied, you get strength. We're gonna test this out by replacing the frost mallet. And we can kind of see at the bottom of the screen if I get a lot of might application, which it does appear to be the case. We got up to 8. That was a really close fight for some reason. Freezard still did a lot of damage, but it must have gotten nuked by one of the enemies. The Isocrawl is making me a little worried if it's, for example, making us weaker than we should be. I'm gonna bring the Glacial Hammer back in. And then I'm gonna do something perhaps a little sketchy here. I have this unit called Cold Melt, which whenever it's hurt, it applies frost to 2 random enemies. And again, like, we want frost on the enemy units. The Isocrawl is a little scary because it's actually making my own units weaker. We're gonna try doing a fight without it, which unfortunately is the boss that's coming up. Luckily, the boss doesn't have any typing to it, so I don't really have to worry about weaknesses here. I don't feel like I'm gonna die, but I really don't know if Ice Crawl is keeping us in good safety. So the scary part about this fight is that the Knot King is actually getting the same buffs that I am. So if you remember, my Freezard is getting like crazy amounts of attack power, and then I have Might coming in as well. I don't know if the King can actually get all of the damage that Freezard can get, because I was actually able to handle that pretty well. That didn't feel all that bad. So I actually think I can sell off our Ice Crawl, get the XP for it, and get Freezard a little closer to max level. Here's the new Biome Breakout. We have Fire, we have Bug, we have Physical, we have more Fire. I should probably avoid Fire whenever possible. And now you can see we can really get through these fights pretty well. It's really just a big front line and then the dragon in the back. We don't need any units, we'll just get the XP for it and start climbing up the ranks fight by fight. Freezard eventually evolves into the brand new Wyvernity, which is a really cool looking unit. It now attacks 3 times in a row whenever it does its special. As I said, I'm using this Fireball, which does extra damage every time I attack. We're sitting on a lot of money now, $24. If I ever needed anything, we have plenty of money to grab it. There's only a couple of fire units every once in a while, and if I die to those, I think that's probably okay, so long as I don't lose all of my units. Core Glue finally evolves. It's now a Howler. This thing grants allies ahead of me 8 shield, which seems to be both of the tanks that are in front of me. And then whenever allies get shields, we get energy. It's really taken a long time. I've been sitting on this Chilladin the entire time. We've only just now been able to level it up. We now have Centillion. This thing gets 100% of all cold on the map as shield, which is gonna be a lot of shield. We'll head into an event room. We get the chance to fight another mini boss. We're gonna do that because every mini boss gives us a field effect. This is versus Handora. This one could be a problem because Handora moves your units around. In all honesty, if my Wyvernity is moved to the front, I might auto die. And it's dead. 659 damage. Honestly, if they don't pull out another unit to protect itself, Wyvern is gonna blow it up. So field effects, if an ally faints, gets damage. All air types are turned into ground types, which I do have 1. And then turn all lightning types into toxic, which I also have 1. We're gonna go for the grounded, maybe lose some of our electrical weakness. I think that might help out with bug weakness too, I believe. So right now, I really do feel like the build is pretty self-sufficient. Every once in a while, I take a look at the different items that are being offered to me to make sure that I'm not missing out on some kind of like secret tech that I'm unaware of. There's actually quite a lot of items in the game, and I still don't have all of them. I'm gonna try out this broken shield. Whenever we apply Frail, we get shielding from it. As you know, whenever I get shielding, we get energy. And more energy means more shields, basically. Originally, we were only getting Frail from our physical passive, but now we also get Frail coming from Comelt, so that's 2 sources of Frail. I was hoping for this ice fight to have a Comelt evolution to it because we still need to level this thing up. Wow, I actually lost a lot of my units. I don't quite know what did it, but both Comelt and Haldor lost a lot of life. And I'm gonna assume that Centillion just never got the shields off. Very interesting. Alright, so Comelt evolved into Astrominable. Whenever this thing gets hurt, it puts cold on 3 random enemies, and then its special applies 3 frail and 6 bomb. I think the bomb is whenever you die, it explodes. We no longer need to recruit anything. We're also rich. Let's go into the final fight before the boss. This happens to have 4 fire units, which is not good for us. But luckily, as long as Wyvernity is untouched, we should probably win. Onward to the campfire. Here we can make a unit Dusk. Dusk I actually have as part of Wyvernity, So it might make sense for us to go ahead and do that so long as we aren't making ourselves quadruple weak. Honestly, that might not be too big a deal because I think the last boss does not have typing to it. So we're gonna grab Astronomable, add the Dusk to it. What Dusk does is if I happen to get fainted, it'll actually spawn a copy of one of our units. And that shouldn't be too bad because we have one tank and we have one unit that actually wants to die, funny enough. This is our last round, so I'm gonna spend a little bit of morale that I have to spend some money. We end up getting a little bit of health. And now we get to go into the final boss. This is Kādodex. This thing will summon random portals, which I'm sure might be an issue. But to be honest, I don't know what the portals do. We'll have to see if it becomes an issue. Then this thing levels up into Kādodex. This will now summon all of the level 2 Kādomon that we have seen and released. It also has 1,000 health, which is quite a bit. I think this also counts monsters that I just took and then sold just to grab an item off of it. Sinchillion is having a lot of issue keeping shields up. I don't quite know why. Ooh, 126? Was that a super effective hit? That was quite a lot. Kādodex actually has a ton of buffs on it. But as soon as Wyvernity gets a turn with no tank in front of it, you know the monster's gonna get blown up. 2,200 damage coming from our dragon. That is the last fight. The game does have us to pick some extra stuff, but none of this stuff matters. That's a clean victory. A bunch of unlocks here, which are really like achievement based. But that was actually really clean, except for going down to 10 HP. That was probably a bad part. But besides that, the end result was something busted and actually really good. Kind of shows you the full potential of what you can do in a game like this. For example, in this build, I have my tank Warmonger. This thing gets thorns, and then every time it gets hurt, half of its thorns is transformed into shielding. We just need to get a way to generate lots of thorns over time. We also have Travolt. This is an electric type, where anytime a unit faints, it grants energy to all of my units, which activates their special abilities. It itself deals damage and an effect, but don't worry about that part. Then we have Veedotme. This is the bear that takes one of your units and creates a copy of it. We're going to be creating copies of Travolt. And then on my back line, I have our damage dealer. This is Chimpire. Every time it's hurt, it gains attack, and its special ability deals damage to all enemy units. So while this sounds pretty simple at first, what actually happens is that whenever a battle starts, Veedotme is going to take Travolt off the map. And it's going to summon a Nibbolt, which is the level 1 version, in the very front. Electric types are really good at generating energy, and whenever Nibbolt dies, it gives energy to all of my other units. Nibbolt is now on the front line, and it has some thorns on it, so it's going to take the very first hit, while my Warmonger is gaining shielding and thorns over time. If my Nibbolt dies, that's okay, because Veedotme has actually been stacking Nibbolts off to the side. Even though I didn't have another copy of Travolt, it's still generating Nibbolts every time it does its special. And remember, each Nibbolt that dies gives all of my units energy. Eventually, Veedotme is going to die by itself because it's balanced to lose health whenever it makes a copy. But by the time it dies, my Warmonger has so much shielding and so much thorns, it can actually solo most of the bosses I have trouble with. It's funny because the Warmonger is actually my failsafe, because typically Chimpire is doing all of the damage in the entire fight. Here's an example of a completely different build from that. Here we have our tank Smogila. This is a pure poison, I don't know what kind of reptile it's supposed to be, but whenever it gets hurt, it deals poison and chill to its attacker, and then it gains shielding based on all of the poison that's on the field. After that, we have our support unit, Taser. This one has triple typing. It's poison and lightning normally, but I also stuck dark on it. Whenever an ally uses a super, you deal 4 poison to a random enemy. Very simple. And its super grants allies energy based on poison that's on the map. You can almost start to see a theme going here. We have our damage dealer, which is Eldritch. It's like a ostrich Cthulhu monster. When an ally ahead of you uses its super, it tosses 2 poison on a random enemy. Taser is part electric, and electric types are really good at generating energy. The Eldritch super it triggers all of the poison on the map, so it sort of detonates the poison that's on the existing enemies, but it also heals the ally in front of you based on some of the damage dealt. So even though it's supposed to be a healing unit, it's gonna technically turn into a damage dealer. And then finally, our true support, which is Zumbus. Before Zumbus attacks, it grants your allies energy, which again is used for the supers. And then its super grants allies additional damage. That part's not really important. It's really only here to grant everybody energy. Oh, and one other note, whenever our units use their supers, we're getting health from it. So what this build turned into is an energy generator with a tank that spreads poison, and then a unit that detonates poison on all of the enemies that have it. And I'm also healing my units at the same time. So I can last almost indefinitely, and then the monsters are guaranteed to die because there's so much poison on them. You can see here that the Eldritch does so much more damage compared to everyone else, and it also heals at the same time. So as you see, as a roguelike game, this gets surprisingly deep. I play lots of auto battlers in my day, and honestly my favorite part about them is to turn them into sort of a busted build hunter. You have stars of the show that fully carry the entire team, where my whole goal is to just reach some kind of really cool setup that's almost YouTube worthy. And I gotta say, that's my favorite part about playing any kind of auto battler. And trust me, I've tried a lot of different setups. Some have been absolute struggles. So I'm actually pretty excited to try to come up with other cool setups that work even better than this one I have here. But as I said before, this game is only day 1 early access, so expect to see a lot of changes throughout its development period. If you want to join in to make Kādomon the best it can be, they do have a Discord channel, which is linked in the description of this video. If you want to pick up the game, check out the description of this YouTube vid. We have the link to the Steam store page. During week 1, you can get 10% off the game. Figure out which Kādomon is your favorite, then post a comment letting me know which one you ended up using the most. Alright, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. I like to get you all the best content that I can. If you want to take a moment, like the video, subscribe if you want to see more, ring the bell notifications so you can get those. You could also consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. All of those are links which are in the description. Just scroll down and you'll see them. Either way, thanks for joining in, and I'll catch you on the next video.